I'm going to start with don't shoot the messenger, because some of this is quite kind of uncomfortable and might be uncomfortable for quite a lot of people. So what I'm going to start with is why the working class turned blue. So little illustration, granddad's working class man, voted Labour all his life. Yes, they actually called this person up and said, are you voting Conservative? So what did I do? So just before the election and after the election, I went across the country and I did 40 one-hour depth interviews, and I just hung out in really interesting places, mainly kind of pubs and social clubs. We've got access to people's Facebook posts, so all the images you see are actually live from their kind of Facebook posts. And then afterwards we did some additional kind of flip task, which was done by Pete, which will bring it to life, this kind of audience. Also I chose Felton because I think there's a little bit of illusion that this is a Northern and Midlands factor, and actually when you go to wards, in certain wards in London, Mitcham, Eltham, Felton, I'd say they have far more in common with the North than they do with other elements of London. I wanted to start just talk a little bit about the white working class, and this comes from a big presentation I've got, so I won't spend too long on it. But I think it's important to understand their codes, because once you understand some of their codes, you can then understand where they're coming from. I think one of the first things is that some people say they're 25%, but actually when you look at the survey of British social values, they put it to 60%. I think both are probably wrong. I'd say it's more around the kind of 50%. But what's quite interesting is for many people, and I'd say many people in the advertising industry and also the government, if you take prototypicality, and that means what's the prototypical of something. So if I said bird, people might say swan, or they might say dove. When you say working class, people say poverty. And that's not the whole picture. So I've identified 3 different kind of groups of people. One called the salt of the earth, one the aspirational working class, and one the strugglers. The salt of the earth, I would say, is the biggest kind of audience. They have a very strong work ethic. They're very black and white in terms of their thinking, so it can be very close. They love their holidays. They like the good things in life. They find it hard to move up class, so it's very much about keeping up with the Joneses, really into traditional working class activities, and really take pride in themselves and their home. The next group is the aspirational working class. So it's not actually that much difference between these and the salt of the earth, but I think one of the big differences is how they kind of view education. So for the salt of the earth, it's a little bit dark, but there's a little bit of a concept, I don't want my child to do too well because I don't want my child to leave me. They want their children to be happy, but not progress and be different. This audience is different. They have a strong drive for their children to succeed. And then the most well documented are strugglers, and some really horrific kind of stories. They're struggling emotionally and financially, often living in kind of stress and chaos just because they've got so much going on in their life. They want to change their life, but they don't know how to. So they say to me, Steve, I want a better life, but I don't know how to kind of do it. When you do interviews with this audience, they're often low in confidence, they go very, very quiet, or they can be very, very kind of vocal. But the important thing is they're disfranchised from society, and the people that are hardest to them are other working class people. So the salt of the earth and the aspirational working class will be the people like, you're the people who are saying we're like shameless, you're the person who's a scrounger, you're the person, the teenage mum who's jumping the housing list. So the harshness can come from other kind of groups. So there's common kind of codes that join them together, not so much the strugglers, but the other two, which are much bigger. I think the first thing is, life's shit, actually. Life's tough for a lot of these people. The present's really, really difficult. They're struggling. They're struggling financially, and they're struggling in terms of the concepts of time. And the future looks bleak. They haven't got a passport of education to start route and move to another kind of area. They're unlikely to have a decent kind of pension. It's unlikely their children will get onto the housing ladder. So what they tend to do is they tend to go backwards. And when times get more and more difficult, people go back to the past because the past allows them to feel safe. So they tap into nostalgia. And the past gives them security and also kind of positive memories that the world's not changing too fast around them. It's hard to really articulate what that is. I think the best kind of articulation is probably a Hovis hat in their kind of head. It's something very, very nice, community orientated. I think another element is the communications, very much to the point. I hate the word authenticity. I think it's a crap word, and clients kind of love it. But it means different things to different people. But for this audience, it's about being straight talking and saying it as it is. They kind of accept arguing. So I've done groups and been in people's houses, and they kind of kicked off with each other and then kind of calmed down. I think they don't pontificate. So they're not going to sit there for a long time thinking about what an ad means, thinking about what policy means, thinking about the world. And they don't do that because they haven't got much time. They're really, really time poor. And because they're time poor, it means they've got limited mental availability. And because they've got limited mental availability, it means they won't pontificate, but it also means everything has to work on kind of system one. They laugh to survive, so they like humour, and often it's very un-PC and very kind of cutting. And they value strength, and we'll come to that later. Just a few more codes. Socially conservative on the whole, so they believe you should be tough on crime. Dislike political correctness, not necessarily dislike diversity, they dislike political correctness because it feels that someone else telling me what to do and how to kind of think. Locally minded, most people haven't moved for 3 generations more than 5 miles. This is an interesting one. They like the upper classes. They like David Cameron. They liked Boris Johnson. The things they like looking back in the past. They like things like The Crown, for instance. What they dislike is the middle classes. So I did a load of stereotype work with this audience, and we put down different things. And we put upper class, and people are like, wow, upper class, they're crazy, they're wild, they like orgies, they like having sex, they're eccentric, they go naked. Then we did working class, and they're like, yeah, they're cheeky chappy, they're fun, they're lively, they're great fun, they're the soul of the party. Then I did middle class, and they're like, they're just boring. And part of that reason is, I think, is because they don't like the fact that other people have moved up, but also they feel they're being kind of judged. They want little rays of sunshine in their life, so they like immediate gratification, which is why a bottle of wine and chocolates each day is good. And they're not socialists. They like luxury. They like concepts that kind of show how they're doing and show kind of progression, whether that's nice clothes or just little things like a bottle of champagne. They're fatalistic, so they believe that life just deals with cards and you just kind of roll with it and kind of go on with it. And for that reason, they dislike victimhood. And they're savvy shoppers. I don't know if anyone's ever done shopping with these. These people just know everything. They know the price of everything. So the result. So it annoys me, actually, and it annoys them. They didn't lend their votes to the Conservatives. I think that's a preconception. It's not lent votes. The Conservatives got it right, and it's talking to them. So the Tories are working man's party. You never think you'd hear that. Labour are for the elites. Labour will never kind of get me back. They're also happy. So I was in a pub, and the pub was buzzing on the day after election. Someone said, my wife woke me up and told the result. They were pleased with what had happened. They felt it was a change. And this is from their Facebook post. They're now tribal against kind of Labour. And very harsh towards those that lost. Mainly by Jeremy kind of Corbyn. And Diane Abbott as well. Brexit was part of the reason for turning blue, but it's not the only reason. And we'll talk more. I think it's more the Conservatives did things right and Labour did things wrong. So what are the kind of strengths? Strong leadership. And it's interesting, just after Brexit, I was talking about Jeremy Corbyn, and at that time when he's confronting other people in the Labour Party and they're trying to get rid of him, some people, even UKIP supporters, saying, I quite like Jeremy because he's really, really strong. Jeremy's strength kind of declined when he dithered on Brexit. Boris felt very, very strong, felt connected, and was very connected, and he's shown that with his instances here and his connection with the kind of army. So he's not weak. He might be posh, but boy, he's tough. When they started taking on Parliament, their ratings with this audience went through the roof. They really increased because people thought it was an act of kind of strength. He's ruthless. He's Britain's Tyrone, like from Game of Thrones. Ask people about positivity and what is it? What's their personality? And Boris was seen as being fun, he's patriotic, positive and upbeat, he's bringing some sunshine to my kind of life, but also safe and stable. They felt, I wouldn't say they trust him, but they felt it was in his hands and things would be better. But it's not just him. Boris' team was also seen as socially conservative, especially Prita Patel, also smart and fighters. So there's a little quote about Dominic Cummings, the smart chav, the Brexit man. That Indian woman has the right ideas, be tough on the scum, say no to the do-gooders. And talk about System 1. System 1 is really, really important. These people don't pontificate about kind of meaning, and it works. Trump did it well with Make America Great Again, Take Control is another one, and Get Brexit Done. Get Brexit Done had an immediacy. People were repeating it in the pubs that I was in, strong in social currency, but it also had a feeling of togetherness and a sense of urgency. What they also did is they focused on the now. And I think that's an important thing of this audience. This audience is all about the now and what's happening now. They don't think about the future. So you had immediate messaging. We're going to get nurses more or less for you tomorrow. We're going to get more police for you tomorrow. They had local candidates with a twist. So they surprised people. They used a lot of local candidates, which I think was very, very strong. But they had people, for instance, whose dad had been killed in a pub. They had someone who's a NHS mental health worker. So different kinds of people that didn't feel your traditional kind of conservatives. And what they do, and it's a little bit of a far-right tactic as well, is they project a bright, bright future. And they say, we're going to give you a bright, bright future, but it's just what you remember from the past that makes you feel safe and familiar. We asked people, what are the Conservative parties? The Conservative Party is, and got them to fill in the X's. So, clever, hard-working, tough, rewarding, patriotic, for business, don't back down, manipulative, but for the right kind of reasons, listeners, swashbucklers, cavalier fighters, ordinary and not patronising. Then we come to the words that people use for Labour. So, the Labour Party are Guardian readers, minority-loving, middle-class, elitist, which is an amazing word, a negative word for the Labour Party, revolutionaries, ex-hippies, do-gooders, Channel 4 watchers, trans lovers, international aid givers, and party poopers. Essentially everything that they're not. So you see things like this. So vote for me, and I'll bankrupt the country. And there's no doubt about it. Corbyn was really disliked. So there's a lot of dislike about him because he was seen as being elitist, metropolitan, snobbish, cold, boring, soulless, straight-laced and ultra-serious. He wasn't one of them, and there was no connection or way of talking to this audience. Unpatriotic was a big thing. So you saw a lot. He's the enemy of the kind of country, and this was being built up for a number of years, but it kind of really seeped through. He's a traitor. He'd sell the country to Iran. He loves the terrorists. And I won't spend this too long, but on the one hand, the Conservative Boris Johnson is a bit of a rascal with the ladies. He can sometimes bend the truth a bit. He's also a bit posh. But here's all the kind of anti-Britain, how they see anti-Britain things that Corbyn has done. People felt that Labour was not for them, and it was for the few, not the many. So how would I describe Labour? It's a cross between Lily fucking Allen, Stormzy, Russell Brand, and Joe Brand on Charlie taking a lot of coke and basically talking shit. But there's this feeling that it's metropolitan and for the middle class. Now, Labour talked a lot about homelessness, food banks, and poverty. It didn't wash with this mainstream audience because they think these are the scroungers. They think these are the people giving them a kind of bad name. And what also Labour kind of did, and I think this from LBC presenter, they did a victim saver enemy equation. So it's the victim is these poor, poor people. The saviour is Jeremy Corbyn, and the enemy is big business. But these poor, poor people, they don't like these poor, poor people. It's not talking to me. I'm working 24/7, I'm working hard, and you're not looking after me. Now, they're savvy shoppers, so the whole kind of freeness, they know there's no such thing as a free lunch. So they immediately kind of picked up on that. So Corbyn promised us free ciders and kind of spliffs. But also, other Labour policies didn't resonate. So they're saying free university, but how many of my kids are going to go to university? Nationalising the rail. I take the bus or drive or walk. NHS and Trump, it's a future position. I can't think that far ahead. I want something done immediately. And not everyone dislikes Trump. And then celebrity endorsements. Stormzy, Lily Allen, Hugh Grant, they're just really, really easy to shoot down. And I saw this with Brexit as well. People say, okay, I might like David Beckham, but what does he know about my world? He doesn't live in my world. And just to finish, I've got a bit of film, which hopefully...
I believe he's Boris. I believe he's got fire in his belly. I believe that everything that he says he's going to fulfil.
Boris he's funny, he's genuine, down to earth. I feel like he's what I want my future to be, whether it's 5 years or 10 years, obviously.
What you see is what you get sort of character, I think. Whereas Jeremy hides a lot. He tells us what we want here.
Jeremy Corbyn is really a liar. Everything he stands for, everything he's saying, he's coming up with unrealistic things such as the free Wi-Fi for all households and, you know, no student fees, things like that. We need a leader to be patriotic because they need to put England first. They need the country's best interest at heart, and they need to put our country above everything. Boris, I believe, is patriotic. He wants to get the job done, and he believes that England can thrive and be an independent country that we should be.
Jeremy Corbyn, he's like quite the opposite. He's not patriotic. He's just for everyone and everything and all nationalities. He doesn't really have any patriotism in him at all, not one bit. English are second-class citizens.
Get Brexit done. Probably said that thousands of times.
I think the Conservative Party's slogan of "Get Brexit Done" appeals to absolutely everyone, whether you voted to stay or leave. I think it appeals because we want to get over this hill. It's been going on for years and it's ridiculous how long it's taken.
Labour's slogan on the other hand, for the many not the few, it sounds like they're saying it's for all creeds, races and religions, all walks of life, but I genuinely don't believe that, and I don't know or have heard of anybody who does believe that. I think that was said to try to succumb people to believe that they had the interest of the public at the heart. The only people who would have benefited from a Labour one would have been people who don't work, people who wanted to stay on benefits or claim benefits. The NHS waiting times will be reduced. The streets will be a lot safer because there'll be more police officers. The pound will be up, stocks and shares. He voted to leave himself. There'll be less poverty because Boris will have boosted more money into our economy. So yeah, overall, I do think it'll be better with Boris being in charge. If Jeremy had won the election, I can hand on my heart say it would have been worse. I feel that he only looks after the so-called doldosses or whatever you want to call them. I don't feel he has a working man in mind.
So that wraps up my presentation. Big thank you, Dave from Peak for the wonderful films and kind of bringing us that life. So thanks very much.